let's start by welcoming Louis Bisang to the stage, and we're going to have a very quick conversation around, what we're doing with the actively managed certificate, what this means, obviously, for the companies already in there, but more importantly, what will happen down the road as well. There's been, a phenomenal amount of interest around it, and also, a lot of our US investors knocking at the doors and saying, how do we participate? And that's something that we've been working on as well. So, Louis, I see you now. Welcome again. How are you doing?
Welcome, Amit. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we hear you well. We hear you well. And you're coming to us from Gibraltar today, yes?
Yes, I'm normally based in Switzerland, but as I'm with Turcom Private Bank, I'm in Gibraltar at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. So, Louis, let's get started with the certificate. Obviously, this is something that we've put together over many months. Very, very exciting, incredible companies in. Every week we're hearing great stories of progress and success for each of these companies. For those of the audience who are in for the first time or don't have a great understanding of the product, can you take like 3 minutes or so to just explain what the product is, what the highlights are, what this means for investors especially?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. It's all about the SVBS portfolio you built over years. So I'm happy to be a facilitator, I would say. And we have a good partnership to create like a product out of the portfolio you created over the years. And it's TPB Issuer, which was founded by Turcom Private Bank and used as well, that is issuing right now the portfolio. With Digital Waves, the Swiss asset manager, who is the official strategy manager advised by SVBS. So it's a diversified portfolio growing over time, and like a easy way to be part of what the fantastic work that SVBS is doing.
And well, thank you, and we're really excited to be able to bring this portfolio of incredible companies into this opportunity bi-directionally. The idea is how do we think about a long-term sustainable capital strategy for the companies, and at the same time, and more importantly, how do we bring access to these unique assets in a well thought out, managed way that is both flexible with just a fewer restrictions from an investor's perspective. So if you wouldn't mind perhaps just talking about kind of the high level highlights of the product.
Yeah, should I share some slides, because I got the summary ready, so you can I have to.
Yeah, whatever to you. Go ahead.
To share my screen first. So it's called the Disruptive Tech Portfolio because one of the highlights is it's not only blockchain, as you could think from the name of SVBS, Silicon Valley Blockchain Society. It's diversified also in AI and blockchain, in AI and IoT. So all disruptive technologies of our century are combined here, and yeah, we are diversifying by having 20 plus and evolving startups included. It's also various stages of these startups. Most of them are very early stage, but it could go very quickly that they are not early stage anymore at some examples. And they're also diversified by region. By nature, it's mainly dominated by US, as SVBS is from San Francisco, Silicon Valley origin, but we got Swiss, Belgian, Singapore companies as well. And yeah, we try to, together with SVBS, to capture synergy effects between these companies. So they are from various industries as well. So they can help each other out, provide services, get insights from the knowledge of SVBS, and so enhance each other. If you look at the vehicle we created around this portfolio, it's a very lean setup. It's has a Swiss ISIN number. We wrap it in a certificate. You don't have a holding period or lockup period. So it's not a typical VC fund. It's actually gives you access to investments which you otherwise could not get to, or normally just large funds have access to, or you need to write ticket sizes of a couple millions. That's not the case here. So if you look at this slide here, then that's an overview of all the key points. So it's multi-assets, mainly equity, but also can include tokens or safes, so simple agreements for future equity. As we mentioned, it's multi-technology. It's the SVBS portfolio, so invest alongside SVBS, but we added a lot of interesting, promising companies on top, but it's not a black box with capital calls, with other VC funds where you don't know what you get sometimes. So it's the opposite of a spec, I would say. And we got clear processes, so it's, I would say, triple checked on due diligence, because SVBS mostly invested themselves, so they did the due diligence. On the issuer side, there is a due diligence done, and also we as a strategy manager, together with SVBS, do another due diligence, and to really replicate the portfolio, make it evolving, it's open end, which is special for VC, so we can reinvest and add the deal flow that is upcoming from SVBS. That gives you also the possibility of secondary market, so it's on best effort. That doesn't mean you can get out within a day or so, but it's not locked up for 8+2 years, as it's very common with VC investments. And I mean, the setup is it's new. There's no track record, to be honest, but it's a very solid setup with TPB issuer, with SVBS as an advisor, with a Swiss asset manager, with a Swiss paying agent. You got a Swiss ISIN number. There are no hidden fees like other VC structures. Sometimes they got multi-layer of fees, so it's 220. No other hidden fees, no redemption, subscription fees, and so on. All in US dollar base, which makes sense because most companies are from the US, and for sure it's for qualified investors. That gives you an overview of the sectors these companies are coming from. I think you, Amit, best can say something later about the highlights of these companies, because there's such a broad range from compliance, RegTech, Neki, for example, Melt, which just saw Ken logging in, which is in DeFi and just invented something very, very new. Then, I mean, there's art, there's IoT, the new buzzword of the NFTs. We got media included, healthcare, and so on. Yeah, so please reach out to us if you want to learn more, and we're happy to introduce you to the portfolio together with Amit and the whole SVBS team.
Thank you, Louis. Yeah, and one of the things that so on the exposure side, obviously it's a really interesting combination of even stage, even though for many of the investors in your world, Louis, this would be considered early. For many of the investors in the Silicon Valley world, it's cross stage, because some are seed, but some are kind of stage wise would represent more like a B. So it's an interesting combination, and again, it's all of the thematics that are resonating well, and you can see that in the results of these companies already. So whether it is Artea and Streambed doing work in the NFT space, you have companies like Nodal in the IoT space, Meld, of course, doing incredible work in DeFi, and we'll talk to Ken a little bit more about something that they've done that's been so unique and such a great strategy. Netki is we can't actually announce yet what they've been up to, but they've got an absolutely wicked announcement coming, I think, in the next week or two, and we'll definitely have Justin on to talk about that, and the list just goes on. But just one quick point on the from the investor perspective. You touched upon that in terms of the how this is like but different from investing in a VC fund. And having that background and that experience, for me, what really stands out and what was so exciting about crafting this was the idea that the LPs that are in our universe and that are looking at the certificate with so much interest, make similar decisions when they go into VC funds, except they're making decisions to go into the fund managers under a thematic, and then believe that they're going to be able to find over the 5-7 years of the fund life, they're going to be able to find the 25 to 45 or 50 companies that would meet that thematic, structure deals with them, bring in some of the best founders, and then of course have return coming in. All of this while being committed and locked up for 7-10 years. The big difference here is the portfolio is already out there. It's not that these teams will reveal companies over a period of time, right? These are great companies that are already there, founders that are doing incredible things, a connection to the founders that they can see through, the videos and all of the material, and do this without being, locked in for a 7-10 year commitments. To me, that's really exciting, because we often talk about that lock-in and liquidity timeline as being such a big factor about how you go into certain investments. So, obviously very exciting, all of the people we talk to, and of course, to be clear, from what I understand, investors are already starting to come in, both in literal terms of money going to payment agents, but also, the process that you're following of how investors have to contact you. Of course, have to make sure that they're qualified investors. And so you're running that process, and that's ongoing now, correct?
Yeah, correctly. Nevertheless, it's not locked up, but you should consider to do a long-term investment, because we expect, as it's from our perspective still early stage, maybe not from the Silicon Valley side, but like the hockey stick coming after a couple of years. I mean, some companies might be quicker, others will take some time, but I mean, there is maybe discrepancy between the Silicon Valley view or the traditional European investor view, but from a European perspective, we consider it as high risk, but we mitigate the risk by having SVBS as a strong, experienced advisor, and to have 20 plus companies. And it's not only that, as you said, a portfolio you built over years with additional companies you have very good connections to, and all the founders and the teams. It's also like a deal flow that you were come from your continuous work over the next year. So it's an ongoing project, and that's why it's open-ended. I mean, initial primary subscription period will end of month, but as it's open-ended, actually it's an ongoing process. I mean, at some point there might be a soft closing, but actually it will be always open for investment, and you can always reach out. And it's not like a fund where it's closed and then you don't have a chance to get in anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think the upside though is the earlier you're in, you're coming in at the collective NAV at the point that it is, and that obviously ostensibly keeps going up as the active portfolio in that certificate is increasing in value. So obviously there's incentive for the investors to come in. But to your point of the lock-in, the liquidity angle, it's fantastic when it's I want to stay, I don't have to stay, right? Which is where you want investors to be. You want everyone to want to stay and leverage the hockey stick.
Yeah.
But I think what's unique about this is that you don't have to. Well, last point, Louis, is that obviously we're all doing a lot of work with making the product available to qualified US investors as well, and I think that will unlock a huge amount of even our SVBS network that would want to come in and go through the process with you to be able to invest in the certificate, and that is underway, and we'll obviously keep the community informed once that vehicle is available. But that ties in to the regulatory reference points. I want to say challenges as well, because that is true in the US context.